Happy Monday. Today is Monday, April the 12th, 2021, and today's daily Bible readings come to us from Psalm 135, Daniel 3, 1 through 30, and then 1 John 2, 3 through 11. And I want to look at Daniel 3, 1 through 30 today and answer the question, who is the God? So this is the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or if you were a devotee of VeggieTales, Rakshak and Benny. And so the story here, and I really don't need to read this to you, tell you this because you've read it already, I'm sure. But Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are servants of Nebuchadnezzar. They're, some of these youths that came out of Judea, Jerusalem, when the Babylonians conquered that, and they took all the people away. No, not all the people, but they took a good chunk of the people away. And so here they are living in Babylon under King Nebuchadnezzar. And some of these guys, they found their way into, actually positions of authority, working for the king. Daniel himself, right, the guy who the book is named after, is one of these people. But as a result, they kind of fell into conflict with the people that were already in charge. So like the satraps and the prefects and the governors, the counselors, treasurers, and justices and magistrates and all the officials of the provinces assembled for the dedication of the statue to the king, right? And this was it's kind of a setup. The king, the king decided it was a good idea, right, to build this big statue and make everybody worship it under pain of death, right? To basically an idol that represented himself as a god. And everybody was supposed to bow and worship at it when the signal went out. And anybody who didn't, people like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they were kind of set up to fail. They were, the other understanding is that, well, if you don't do this, we'll kill you. And so that's where we get to where I'm picking up is where, of course, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that they wouldn't do it because they were good Jewish boys. They didn't worship idols. And they tell him that. And he says, well, there's nothing to do for it. If you don't bow down, worship it, I'm going to put you in this fiery furnace. This is the story of the fiery furnace. And, their response to him is, do what you got to do. But the interesting thing, though, is he asks this question. He says, and if I do this, who is the God that is going to deliver you from my hands? Who is the God? Well, who is the God that delivers them? It's the God who stands in the fire with them. And that's really, to me, the interesting part of this. God doesn't, you would expect a story like this for God to come in and do some amazing thing. This is the God, remember, who smote the Egyptians, with all the plagues and the Passover plague, where the angel of death passed over the people of Israel, but didn't pass over the people of Egypt and took all the firstborn. This is the same God who, threw horse and rider into the sea, parted the Red Sea and then made it swallow up the Egyptian army and all the chariots and horses thereof. But that's not the God who shows up here. The God who delivers Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from this bombastic, idolatrous, full of himself king, who makes this golden statue of himself, I guess it was gold, and takes it to, the Babylonian National Convention or whatever. The God who shows up doesn't go out of his way to be as loud and more impressive and more bombastic than this pretender God. He just shows up and stands in the fire with Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego. The God who would deliver them is the one who stands in the fire with them. And the interesting thing is he forces Nebuchadnezzar to admit that he's not a god. He forces him to admit that he was wrong. He forces him to witness exactly what kind of God it is that delivers people from his hands. And at the end of the day, he has to admit he's wrong and then threaten anybody with penalty of death that speaks against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So, who is the God who would deliver them from his hand? It's the God who stands in the fire with you. That's the God. Anyway, that's the DBR for today. Go out, enjoy the day, have a great day, and we'll be back tomorrow. Boop.